of my nightmare. It's been a little while, been a couple days, I think, depending on whether or not I get this video out same day or not. We're gonna be taking a step back again, and this time we're gonna be discussing a bit more of Jehovah's Witnesses and why they drive me crazy. And today I want to talk about, well, you know already because you clicked on the video. Stop licking my foot, please. Are Jehovah's Witnesses Christians? I think not, and let me tell you why. Now, I remember my aunt, she told me this story of how when she was a teenager, she went to school with this boy, and I don't remember the specifics about this boy. I don't think she told me anything, like if he was religious or not. But she told me that he would repeatedly tell her, oh, Jehovah's Witnesses aren't Christians. They don't believe in Jesus. Hey, Shem. And she would always tell him, yes, we do believe in Jesus. We do follow Jesus, blah, 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 blah. And she would tell me this story as a way of like saying, oh, look at how stupid the people on the outside are. They don't even know what we believe. They don't even know that we believe in Jesus. And I used to be like, yeah, man, worldly people are so stupid. Shem, you're making it really difficult to exist right now. Do you know that? I love you so much, Tom. You smell like spit. Domino, have you been licking him? Yes, you're cute too, I know. Anyways, are Jehovah's Witnesses Christians? Well, let's back that up. Do Jehovah's Witnesses believe that they have the one true religion, whether they are Christians or not? Yes, they do. Let me read you a little excerpt that explains why exactly Jehovah's Witnesses believe that they are the one true religion. Now, this excerpt is from an article, a very short article, on the jw.org website entitled, Do Jehovah's Witnesses Believe That They Have the One True Religion? Let me read it for you. Those who are serious about religion should think that the one they've chosen is acceptable to God and Jesus. Otherwise, why would they be involved in it? Jesus Christ didn't agree with the view that there were many religions, many roads, all leading to salvation. Rather, he said, narrow is the gate and cramped the road leading off into life, and few are the ones finding it. Matthew 7:14. Jehovah's Witnesses believe that they have found the road. Otherwise, they'd look for another religion. You're not allowed to look for another religion if you're a Jehovah's Witness. That's the biggest thing. That's the biggest fucking thing that I have to mention. Shem doesn't like it when I get too pumped up. But that is the thing that pissed me off the most about this article, is that when you are a Jehovah's Witness, you don't believe. You're not allowed to believe on your own merit. You are told, this is the truth. This is the way. Walk in it. Domino, don't let Shem stick his entire face in your ear. Please. Now he's going in your mouth. You're just letting him do whatever he wants. Look at these babies. Look at these babies. Look at them. Aww. They are so sweet to each other. They're so fucking cute. You know that whole, the lion and the lamb would lay together in the field or whatever bullshit? That's them. That's these two right here. They are so sweet. Anyways, so they cite Jesus here at Matthew, what is it, 7:14? Yeah, Matthew 7:14. And here's the thing about that verse. Jesus was not talking about religion at all, if you look at it in the context. He was talking about the fruits of people and what they do with their lives and how they treat others. And Jesus in this chapter in Matthew 7 makes it very clear what he does not agree with and what he does not want his followers to do. So let's go over that and see exactly what pissed Jesus off the most. So something extremely interesting. If you've had any relationship of whatever kind with the Jehovah's Witness whatsoever, then you know for a fact that they do not abide by the very beginning of this chapter. Shall we read it? Stop judging, that you may not be judged. For with the judgment you are judging, you will be judged. And with the measure that you are measuring out, they will measure out to you. Not only do JWs judge people, both Jehovah's Witnesses, both fellow Jehovah's Witnesses, and worldly people, but they have judicial committees for when someone within the organization does bad. Stop! You're going to turn the computer off. That's what happens when you rub your face on the power button, my dear. You turn off the computer, and then I get very sad. So, judicial committees. I was in one twice. Judgment. What does Jesus say? Don't fucking judge people. Judicial committees are organized judgment based on confessed or presumed sin. They judge you. They judge you to your face. They have you confess to their face what you did in full detail. They judge you on that. They play as the jury. They kick you out of the room so that they can discuss among themselves in private what you have done and what your punishment should be. And then they invite you back into the room and they play executioner with your fucking life. Are you going to be okay? You can walk away from this with... What are you doing? You know, you guys leave me alone for every other video, but for this video, you just gotta be right here, don't you? You just gotta be. Don't just slowly back away. Don't you just... Who do you think you are? Where'd you go? Oh, there she is. Anyways, back to, you know. So, are you gonna be okay? Are you gonna be able to walk away from this unscathed? Are you gonna be disassociated? Not disassociated, what is the word? Reproved? So, reproval is like a step right before disfellowshipment. So, you get reproved if, like, you did something wrong. Like, I was reproved. I'm technically still reproved because I never left officially. I faded, and I never got reinstated to any position, but I don't give a shit. So you can be reproved, and then another steps to that too. You can either be privately reproved, so you just lose your, like, position or whatever, but nobody in the hall is told that you did something wrong, so you can continue going on as usual. Your relationships aren't affected, and you don't have to tell anyone unless you want to. Or you can be publicly reproved. And what that is basically everybody gets told your business. Allegedly, they used to actually say what the person did wrong on stage. Like, they make an announcement. They're like, oh, so-and-so is reproved. And they used to have it that they would say why they were reproved. Sexual immorality, idolatry, smoking, whatever. Now they don't do that because there's very bad privacy issues with that. So surprisingly, they don't do that anymore. They still publicly shame you for breaking the rules if you are reproved. But ultimately, it's a step below being disfellowshipped. So, I was publicly reproved. They made the announcement. And, yeah, anyway. Or you could be disfellowshipped. And disfellowshipped is complete cutting off. You do not go in service anymore. You do not, you're still supposed to go to the meetings, but you're not allowed to talk to anyone. You're not allowed to give talks, of course. Not allowed to carry microphones if you're a man. Not allowed to do any of that. So, are you going to be reproved, disfellowshipped, or are you going to be okay? That's up to them. Your entire fucking future is up to them in that room based on whatever the fuck you did and however the fuck they're feeling today. And did Jesus want that? Did Jesus plan for his people to judge each other like that? No, he didn't. In fact, in this chapter, he explicitly states against it. He says, don't do it. Do not do this. Don't judge each other, for you will be judged yourselves. Like, I'm not a Christian spiritually. I do think that if you were to follow Jesus and only what Jesus taught, I think you would be a pretty good person, or at least express good traits by default if you were a Christian and you followed Jesus, because you would treat people with respect, and you would give to the needy, and you would help people, which we'll get into all that later. But so far, it's not looking too good for the Jehovah's Witnesses and following Jesus, is it? Judicial committees are not a Christian practice. They just aren't. They are a tool used to keep the flock in line. That's it. And Jesus did not approve of them. Jesus did not state that this is something we should do. In fact, he explicitly stated against it. Moving on. Verses 3 and 4. Why then do you look at the straw in your brother's eye, but do not notice the rafter in your own eye? Or how can you say to your brother, allow me to remove the straw from your eye, when look, a rafter is in your own eye? Hypocrite, first remove the rafter from your own eye. Rafter, not raptor. And then you will see clearly how to remove the straw from your brother's eye. So, this is Jesus doubling down on the whole no judgment thing. He's straight up saying, hey, none of you are perfect. None of you are perfect. None of you are able to judge each other, because none of you are perfect. All of you have sinned. All of you have done shitty things. If any of you have not done a shitty thing, then you're lying, basically. And this that I'm reading is from the JW Bible. This is from their own written, rewritten, pasteurized Bible. And that's from this. So they haven't changed this, clearly. So it's very, very clear what Jesus is stating here. And you cannot change that to be something else without completely changing his meaning. And this is the book that changed ass to donkey, and nobody liked that. So, straight from the horse's mouth, don't fucking judge people. And yet, Jehovah's Witnesses' entire thing is judging people, and judging each other, and judging the world, and judging this, and judging that, and judging entertainment, and judging movies, and books, and music that people like to listen to, and judging your thoughts, and your actions, and your sexuality, and your gender. Everything is judged. Everything. There's not a stone left unturned that isn't turned over and judged when you are Jehovah's Witness. Do not give what is holy to dogs, nor throw your pearls before swine, so that they may never trample them under their feet and turn around and rip you open. I don't know what this means. I do not know what this means at all. I never knew what it meant. It was never explained to me. I have asked about it many times. This and the don't boil a goat in its mother's milk thing, I don't understand. I'm sure this makes sense to somebody, but if you want to ask me, I think that Jesus was just getting a little bit cronked on some of that holy wine he liked to make. Because I don't understand what any of that means. If it could be explained to me, cool. I'm sure it does make sense, but for now, I'm sticking with Jesus was drunk. That's my theory. Indeed, which one of you, if his son asks for bread, will hand him a stone? Or if he asks for a fish, he will not hand him a serpent, will he? Therefore, you, although being wicked, know how to give good gifts to your children. How much more so will your Father who is in the heavens give good things to those asking him? We're gonna get a bit personal with this one. I can't even count. I might get emotional here. I cannot even count how many times I reached out and asked for help when I was poor, broke, struggling, on the verge of homelessness, had no job, had no skill set, had no hireable qualities at all, because I was a young adult with no skill set, because I had spent my entire life in a restrictive religion and I could not get a job. I had never gone to school. I was completely homeschooled my entire life. I didn't even know math. Like, I'm not joking. I have a disability with math, and that was never addressed, never taken care of. I was just assumed to know it. I know how to read because I taught myself, pretty much. I was very neglected skill-wise, like, extremely. And nobody would help me. Like, I asked for help so many times, so many things. And no Jehovah's Witness would help me. What I got for help was family members who would take me in, take me under their wing, take me into their home, and then get frustrated with me when I couldn't get a job and I couldn't pay my own way. And I couldn't get a job. I had no experience. I was a baby who was just expected to fucking know shit and expected to be able to get a job with no skill set, with no idea of what I was doing, with no idea of how to talk to a hiring manager, with no idea of how to write a resume. I was just expected to be preconditioned with all of these things, and the only thing I needed to be taught, the only thing I really needed to do was be a pioneer and work for God, and the rest of that would just all fall in place. That's what I was told. At assemblies and conventions, this was when I was at my lowest peak. I did not know what to do. I needed help. I severely needed help. I felt so useless, and I had no goals, no trajectory whatsoever. I was just expected to be a puppet for the organization, and they did not care about anything else going on in my life. As long as I was going to meetings and as long as I was going in service, they did not give a shit about what happened to me otherwise. They did not care what was happening in my life whatsoever. So at assemblies and conventions, what I would do in a desperate attempt to get somebody's eyes on me so that I could get the help I needed, I would write, I would take pieces of notepad paper and I would write my situation. Like, I would write what was happening to me. I would write that I needed help. I needed a job. I needed an internship. I needed training of some sort. I needed somebody to take me under their wing and teach me the skills I needed in life and give me a fighting chance at surviving in this world. And I would leave my name. I would leave my name and my contact information on these little pieces of paper. And it was a completely desperate attempt at getting somebody to acknowledge my suffering. And I would leave them around the convention center, around in the bathrooms, and nobody, not a single soul, ever reached out to me for years. Nobody cared. I felt so hopeless. I felt completely invisible. I felt like nobody cared. I felt like I was cursed to be this way until paradise. And I remember sitting with myself and praying, like, please God, I can't be a useless leech for my entire life. And I felt so bad about it. It was... I remember coming to this conclusion that everybody in this world, especially Jehovah's Witnesses, had something in their life that they were struggling with, that they were suffering with. And that thing, whatever it was that they were suffering with, was just their burden to bear in this world, and that mine was that I would be a useless piece of shit until the new world, that I would not get a job, that I would not be able to get any training, that you're told to not look to the world for help in circumstances like this. You were told to look to your brothers and sisters for help, and none of them cared enough to help me. Not a single soul cared enough to get me off my feet, to get me trained, to get me feeling like I could be a productive member of society, because they didn't care if I was a productive member of society. They only cared that I could give more to Jehovah, to the organization. And you know what I would get when I went up to people and I asked them, people who I knew had jobs, careers, who were making very good money, very good income, even part-time. A lot of them had their own businesses. None of them offered to help me. Or maybe none of them could help me. I don't know. I would have even worked for free. Honestly, I offered to intern just so that I could get some experience, just so I could do something with my life. I spent every day, if I wasn't in service, I spent every day just sitting in my room, just putting in job applications and not getting any responses and wondering why. What's wrong with me? How do you get a job if you're putting in application after application after application, and heaven forbid you actually get a call back from an employer and you have to tell that employer, when they ask you where you've worked before, that you are 20 and you've never had a job before, you've never went to school, you've not went to college, you're not in any training, you don't have any skill set, you've been stuck under a rock your entire life. And to hear that employer go click, because you are not what they're looking for, you are not what they need. It's really hard on me, because I feel like I at one point had a lot that I could give. I had a big drive, I had a lot of ambition, and had that been channeled, had somebody helped me and helped me channel that into something, I don't know. I don't regret where I am now, but I went through a lot of very useless and very needless suffering because of the selfishness of other people who just did not want to help me, because they did not see a use in it. They did not see that helping me could help God. As long as I was helping God, as long as I was praying, as long as I was going in service, I was fine. I was fine. As long as I could do that, I was fine. I was young, I was energetic, I was healthy, I was fine, and I was not suffering because they did not see it. They gave me stones when I needed bread. They gave me serpents when I asked for fish, and they did not help me. And finally, after years of all of that nonsense, a sister who I barely knew, out of the hundreds of Jehovah's Witnesses that knew, or at least I tried to let them know that I was suffering and that I needed help, one person finally said, yeah, I'll put in a word at my job for you, and I got the job. That was all I needed. That was all I fucking needed for years. For years. Had that happened sooner, I wouldn't have had to go through those years of just doing nothing and wasting my fucking life. And I'm mad about that. I'm really, really mad, because that's all anybody had to do was say, yeah, I'll put in a word at my job for you. Okay, I'll help you. I'll intern you. I'll take you around. I'll help you put in job applications. I'll help you write your resume. I'll give you some advice. I'll coach you on interviews. Somebody could have done that, and nobody did. Fuck Jehovah's Witnesses, honestly. And I'm far from the worst. Far from the worst case scenario. There's other people out there still suffering. There's people in this religion who have been suffering for far longer than I did. And they will probably never get justice. So my pity and my pain is minute. It's a fraction of what those other people are going through and still are going through and probably will be going through until the day they die. This is an evil religion. Get out. And not only all of that, but Jesus here says to ask your brothers and sisters for help, and they will help you if they are true brothers and sisters. That is basically what he is saying. And I asked the people who were called my true brothers and sisters for help, and I did not get help. But you know what happened when I left? When I left the witnesses and I went to a church, or I met worldly people, so-called worldly people of all different religions and belief systems and everything. When I asked them for help, they gave me help. They helped me. It was worldly people who helped me when I was homeless. It was worldly people who helped me get work. It was worldly people who helped me get into college for a semester so that I could have something. It was worldly people who offered their help, who offered their services, who offered to drive me places, who offered to take me to school, who offered to help me get to work. It was worldly people. People who smoked, people who did drugs, people who partied, people who were gay, people who were the complete opposite of what Jehovah's Witnesses preach, I guess. And they helped me. They proved to me that I could have been helped earlier, that I did not have to suffer for so long. It was the worldly people who I was told to stay away from that ended up being my salvation. How can you call yourselves God's people if you won't even help one of your own? If you would just let people suffer when a worldly person would help. Who is the real Christian there? Who would Jesus rather hang out with? Someone who judges people, someone who turns their nose up the moment someone walks in wearing a pride flag pin or something. Or somebody who maybe smokes. Maybe they have sex outside of marriage. Maybe they're gay. Maybe they're trans. Maybe whatever. But that person will help you when you ask for help. And the Jehovah's Witness will turn away. Who would Jesus rather hang out with? A trans person who's got a good heart? Or a Jehovah's Witness who's selfish and unfeeling because they've been manipulated into being that way? I want to finish off this chapter, actually, of Matthew 7, because I think that everything that is said in it applies to Jehovah's Witnesses in some way or another. And I think that it's really important to debunk them from their own book. And it is their own book because they've changed the Bible. So, this next part is very rich. I want you to pay close attention. Be on the watch for the false prophets who come to you in sheep's covering, but inside they are ravenous wolves. By their fruits you will recognize them. Never do people gather grapes from thorns or figs from thistles, do they? Likewise, every good tree produces fine fruit, but every rotten tree produces worthless fruit. A good tree cannot bear worthless fruit, nor can a rotten tree produce fine fruit. Every tree not producing fine fruit is cut down and thrown into the fire. Really then, by their fruits you will recognize these men. So this was read to me, or at least I read it as well. Read to me, and I read it so many times when I was a witness. And it was used as a example. Like, oh, okay, so you will know Jesus's people by their fruit. And then, Jehovah's Witnesses will go off about like, oh, well, we are the only people doing this or that or this or that for God. And that would be their fruit, that they produced fine fruit, and they were who Jesus was talking about. But what are Jehovah's Witnesses' fruits, really? What fruitage do they produce from their work? Forcing children to become martyrs by refusing them blood transfusions? Excommunicating people? Ripping families apart when one person either stops believing or maybe does something wrong and they actually are repentant, but the elders just decide that they're not repentant enough? That's happened. That's happened many times. People who are still believers, who want to be Jehovah's Witnesses, and they're cut off because they made a mistake. They made a mistake, and the elders have decided, because they are judge, jury, and executioner, that person is not to be among them anymore. What about protecting pedophiles or blaming rape victims? That happened to me. Is that the fruit that Jesus wanted his people to produce? Literally doing everything in their power to ignore everything Jesus has taught? How have Jehovah's Witnesses produced any fruit that is not disgusting and worthless? They don't even help each other, and on the rare occasion that they do, you bet Watchtower is behind them with a TV crew ready to record it for the world to see. Because they can't just do things. They can't just help each other. They need to help each other with the goal of making sure everybody else sees it. And if they can't see it, then they don't do it. They would rather build kingdom halls for free, or using labor from people who think that they're doing the right thing for God. They would rather build kingdom halls and shit than build houses for people who have lost them, or house the homeless, or house the poor, or help the poor in their religion, help their own people, give them food, make food drives for them. They have so much money from donations and from all their investments, and they claim to help. They claim that they're Jesus's people, and yet they don't help each other. They don't help others. They don't help anybody but themselves. And my family is still in this, and they would rather hate me because of who I am than hate their goddamn leaders for killing people and for taking their money and for buying nice watches and fancy alcohol rather than help their own people. And I was suffering, and so many people I know are suffering, and they won't help it. They're so blinded by their own bullshit. And I'm not mad at the Jehovah's Witnesses individually. I'm upset that they can't see through this nonsense, but I'm not mad at them. I'm mad at this organization as a whole and how evil it is. I always hesitated to call it evil because everybody's entitled to their own beliefs, but this is inexcusably wrong. It's evil. It's really, really evil. And they claim up and down that they're not like Christendom, and they're not like these mega church pastors, and they're not taking the money of their people, but they encourage children to donate. Children, they get them so young. When I was homeless, I was hired by a church. It was an Episcopalian church. And that was my first time ever stepping into a spiritual house, a house of worship that was not a kingdom hall. And when I saw food, just buffets of food for anybody to come and take, no matter what your belief was, no matter what your race was, no matter anything. If you needed the food, you could come and take it. You were not pressured to stay for the sermon after. You did not have to donate. Nothing. People could come, take the food, and leave. Is that not more Christ-like than anything Jehovah's Witnesses have done? To just give people what they need and to sustain them another day. And it would be so easy for Jehovah's Witnesses to do something like this. It would be so easy. The organization has so much money, but they would rather build their own little Disney world than feed the hungry, their own people who are hungry and starving and need help. They leave it up to their individual members who either don't care or don't feel like they need to help because God will help. It's just so selfish and wrong, and nobody in there sees it. I just don't understand how you cannot see this. I didn't see it. I know it's hard to get out when you're in, but open your goddamn eyes. Like, how can you be so blind? Not everyone's saying to me, Lord, Lord, will enter into the kingdom of the heavens, but only the one doing the will of my Father who is in the heavens will. Many will say to me in that day, Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name and expel demons in your name and perform many powerful works in your name? And I will declare to them, I never knew you. Get away from me, you workers of lawlessness. I have read these paragraphs a million times by now, and they have never hit me the way that they hit me now. This describes Jehovah's Witnesses so well. So sure that they have the truth, that they are following Jesus, and yet not willing to look inward at whether or not they are actually following what Jesus teaches. And again, I don't blame the individual witnesses, but I'm starting to wonder if I should, to some extent, because I can't forgive myself for refusing to look past this, for refusing to make the truth my own, as it's stated, to be able to read that and not see the hypocrisy in the religion. I saw it the moment Stephen Lett went on JW Broadcasting and said that they needed more donations. This was years ago. This was around the time JW Broadcasting first started, I think. I saw that video. I saw that JW Broadcasting with Stephen Lett saying the money coming in is less than the money going out, and that they would never solicit for donations, and yet they were soliciting for donations. That is exactly what they were doing. I remember sitting there being like, something is not right here. Something's not fucking right here. I think I was like 18 or so when that released, I think. And I was completely indoctrinated at the time. Completely 100% indoctrinated at the time. And I should have known from that moment, even with all of my years of indoctrination, even with not knowing anything else, purely off of my knowledge of the Bible alone, and purely off of my personal readings of the Bible, and purely off of what I knew about Jesus, I should have known that was wrong for him to say that, for him to go up there and solicit donations and tell me to my face that he was not soliciting donations. I should have known that that was wrong. I should have known that this is exactly what was talked about with the unfaithful servant. I can't remember exactly the Bible scripture, but I will put it up here because I'll look it up later. As much as I don't really believe in the Bible was straight up telling me that this religion was false. There are so many passages in the Bible that tell you to look out for these things. In Deuteronomy, that's another one I'm going to put up. False prophets. Anyone saying these things, if they do not come true, that person is not from me. Do not follow him. The Bible was telling me to look out for these shitbags. And I didn't, because I followed the men in the tower and not the Bible. That is period. There's no denying that. I allowed myself to be manipulated because I followed the men in the tower rather than the Bible. And had I followed the Bible, I would have been able to say, no, this is wrong. This is wrong. And yeah, it was brainwashed. Whatever. What the fuck ever. The point stands. Had I been actually listening to the Bible, had I actually been taught to listen to the Bible, I would have known. I would have known that these men were lying to me. I would have known that they were wrong. I would have known that they were hurting people. And I would have realized it. I would have seen it with my own eyes. And I cannot forgive myself for turning a blind eye to that. I cannot forgive myself for saying that I believed in the Bible and I was following the Bible when I was not following the Bible. Sure, I was brainwashed. You can be brainwashed into doing really horrible things. You can be brainwashed into killing someone. Should you be forgiven? No, because you have a capacity. You have a brain. And when you are ignoring that feeling in the back of your head that's telling you this is wrong, this is not right, when you ignore that feeling because you want to believe in a paradise, you want to believe in living forever, you are being selfish. And you are refusing to listen to the people who are suffering because you would rather listen to now 9 men in New York than listen to your own goddamn Bible. That is not forgivable. It's not. You can move past it and you can learn to forgive yourself. But in the moment, when you are ignoring the suffering of others, when you are ignoring your own suffering or the suffering of those around you for the sake of the egos of those men in New York, you are wrong. You are wrong. Yes, you've been brainwashed, but you are not doing good things. No matter how you spin it, no matter how brainwashed you are, you're going against your own Bible. I did not think that I would go on this long for this tangent, but it's really bothering me. It's bothering me a lot more than I thought it would. Jesus gave 2 commandments. He said, these are the most important commandments. And what were those commandments? To love your neighbor and to love God. That's it. Those were the 2 most important things Jesus said. And Jehovah's Witnesses do not love their neighbors. They do not love anybody but the organization. I was a selfish person when I was a Jehovah's Witness. I wanted so badly to see my grandmother again, to see my aunt again, to live forever in a paradise, even though the idea of being a Jehovah's Witness forever was, I hated being a Jehovah's Witness, but I wanted so badly for all of that to be true, for me to be able to see my dead loved ones again, for me to not be afraid of death. And I was selfish. And I ignored that voice in my head telling me that this was wrong, even though I was brainwashed. Even though I was brainwashed into thinking that it was right. I knew it was wrong. And I ignored that feeling in my head. And I told myself that that was just Satan trying to get in. And I was wrong. I was wrong. And any of you who still believe this, objectively, you are wrong. You were wrong. And you would rather believe in something that you possibly know deep down is fake. You possibly know is a lie. And you would rather make your friends and family suffer and have the world suffer on your behalf than to man up and state, no, this is wrong. And to look up at the men who have enslaved you under the guise of being the speakers of God and tell them that they're wrong. Disfellowshipping is not a biblical practice. The parable of the prodigal son, told by Jesus, disproves the disfellowshipping arrangement. Period. Point blank. Period. It debunks it. What happens in the prodigal son? A man says to his father, hey, I'm done with the family. Let me have my inheritance. I'm going to go party. He goes to party. He spends all his money. He comes home washed up, destroyed by the world. And his father shuns him? No. His father takes him in with open arms. And his brother, who is upset that his father's just taking him back, he's the one who's rebuked. The one who refuses to take his brother back is the one who is rebuked. That's the one who's wrong. The one who shuns his brother is wrong. Jesus said that. And yet, you disfellowship people. Why? If Jesus said to accept people, why are you disfellowshipping them? Why are you not accepting people? Again, how can you have these two ideas in your head that Jesus said all of these things and that some men in New York are saying some things, and yet if any active Jehovah's Witnesses are watching this, number one, I highly commend you for making it this far. Like, I have a lot of hope in you. Listen to me, please. Jesus said, love your neighbor, love God, period. Jesus said, don't judge people. Jehovah's Witnesses judge people non-stop. Jesus said to love each other. You guys don't love each other. You don't help each other. You don't feed the poor. You don't feed the needy. You don't help anyone. When is the last time you've done a food drive? When is the last time you gave food to a homeless person? When is the last time that someone asked you for help, brother or not, and you helped them? When is the last time you did anything Jesus told you to do? Did Jesus say to follow a bunch of old geezers in New York who don't know what's going on in the world, who don't fucking know anything? Did Jesus say to follow an organization that's been wrong about so many predictions when he himself said nobody knows the time and the hour? I actually don't know if Jesus said that. I think he did. But when Jesus said, don't shun people, accept them, and yet you shun people. Are you shunning someone right now? Have you turned your face away from a brother or a sister who still loves you, who wants to talk to you, who wants to be your friend, who probably still believes all the things that you do? And even if they don't, why does it matter? Why does it matter? It's just all so clear to me now, and it shocks me that it... Not that it wasn't clear before, because even before, I knew deep down. I knew, and I kept telling myself that was just Satan speaking. I knew it was wrong. I knew Stephen Lett was wrong. And I knew that there was no way that the governing body was infallible. And I knew from the moment that they started putting their faces on everything that they were being just like these megachurch pastors who want all the fame and the glory for themselves. Wake up. Look at it. Look at what you are worshiping. It's not God, and you're not following Jesus. You're following a bunch of old men who want to take advantage of you, who are enriching themselves off of your suffering. You cannot look me in the eyes and tell me that a church that feeds the needy is wrong. Even for whatever purpose. People say that, oh, they're doing it for tax reasons or this or that. It doesn't matter. They're helping people, and Jehovah's Witnesses are not. Period. Doesn't matter what they're doing it for. They're being more Christ-like than you. And even if it is just for tax purposes, guess what? It's still better than Jehovah's Witnesses, because Jehovah's Witnesses won't even do it for tax reasons. They just don't want to fucking do it. Their idea of helping people is to give them literature and to get them into the Kingdom Hall so that they can make more money for... They're making money off of you. What are those donations going to? Do you think it's going to help people? No. It's going to spread Jehovah's Witnesses across the earth. That's all they care about. They don't care about helping people. Because if they cared about helping people, they'd be using their millions and millions of dollars to help people instead of building more buildings that they don't need. Just wake up, please. I'm begging you guys, wake up. I know everyone wakes up in their own time, but Jesus, I'm going really off script, by the way. I had a whole script, and I've completely deviated from it. But I don't care, because I feel like what I'm saying is important. And I hope somebody listens to me and listens to the words that I'm trying to tell you. I was in your position once, and I knew it was wrong. I knew it was wrong, and I ignored it because I was told to ignore it. If you are following Jesus, and only Jesus, I'm not even a Christian, but if you're following Jesus, you would not be a Jehovah's Witness, period. Because they're not Christians. They're not Christ-like whatsoever. The fruit is not there. The fruit is nasty. The fruit is disgusting, and you know it. Deep down, you know it. So follow Jesus. If you say you follow Jesus, follow Jesus. What would Jesus want you to do? Would Jesus really want to sit down with Stephen Lett and have a cup of coffee? You really think that he would want to sit down with that judgmental asshole with the elastic face? You really think he wants to sit down with a guy who hates kids when Jesus himself talked about how wonderful kids were because they are innocent? They are uncorrupted. And Stephen Lett is out here saying the exact opposite, that kids are evil, that kids are enemies of God. You think that Jesus, who used kids as an example to live by, you think that he would want to hang out with Stephen Lett? Do you really think that? If you do, you're not living in the real world. Excuse my my teenage boy voice. I'm sorry, but it's true. You can't say it's not. The fruit of Jehovah's Witnesses is death. I know that might be harsh to say, but it is. If you're a Jehovah's Witness and you need a blood transfusion, or your child needs a blood transfusion, you are expected to die. You have a card on you when you're a Jehovah's Witness. You have a card on you. It's the no blood card. In that card is a number. You assign this number. You assign someone in your kingdom hall, or like someone who's a good friend who's a Jehovah's Witness, and you assign that person to be your power of attorney. And if you are in a car accident or any kind of accident and you are incapacitated and you go to the hospital, they're supposed to call that number on the no blood card. It's a whole document. They're supposed to call that number, and that person, your best friend, in most cases your best friend, in my case it was my best friend, they are to then go to the hospital and to fight for your right to die. They are to make sure that you do not receive blood, that you do not receive life-saving medical care. And to ensure that you die, or that you at least don't get blood, they have a committee come in. They have a committee of elders come in to intimidate the doctors, or you, or your power of attorney. And they are there to make sure that you do not get blood, that you die. The fruitage of Jehovah's Witnesses is death in that case. So what about something else? What do you do if you're gay or trans? Well, if you're trans, you can't transition. If you're gay, you need to be either celibate or enter a very loveless marriage with someone that you are incapable of being attracted to, period. Or you die. You give up on life because you're not allowed to live it. And there have been so many people who have died, who have taken their own lives. They aren't held up as martyrs as the blood transfusion victims, or the lack of blood transfusion victims. They aren't held up as martyrs. They're held up as examples of how horrible it is to be gay, maybe. I've known so many people, both Jehovah's Witnesses and otherwise, who insist that being queer is clearly a mental illness because of how much suicide there is in those communities. Do you think it's the fact that they're gay or trans or anything else that makes them want to end their lives? Or do you think it's the years and years of not being accepted, of being told that they are diseased, of being told that their identity is a lie, of being told that they are trash, that they are disgusting, that they are monsters for going against God like this, that they are enemies of God, that they are disgusting for what they're doing? Do you think it's that? Do you think it's years of indoctrination convincing them that something is wrong with them? Or do you think it's because a guy likes guys? Do you think it's because a guy finds a guy attractive and therefore he wants to die? Or do you think it's the years of inacceptance the years of berating, the years of being told something's wrong with him, the years of conversion therapy in some instances. You think it's not that, the torture, that makes them want to die? No, it's because a guy likes a guy, clearly. It's because he's gay. That's why he committed suicide. No. Shut up. You're stupid. If you believe that, you're stupid. You are. You have no idea how the world works. You have no idea how humans work. If you think that it's because they're gay that they want to die. No, it's not because they are gay. It's because of you. It's because of your religion. It's because of the men in New York. It's because of bigotry and hatred for what they do not understand. That they cannot accept it. So they force them. They force the queer people to not accept themselves. And when you feel like you are a monster because you've been told you're a monster, what do you do with a monster? I'll never be accepted by God. What is the point? I'll be killed by God at Armageddon anyway. What is the point? I have a very good friend. And thank God that he went with this direction of thinking instead of the other, which would have led to, him ending his life. He said that he was tired of trying to change. He was tired of trying to be what he knew he couldn't be. And he told me he knows he's going to die at Armageddon. But in the meantime, he just wants to enjoy his life. Can you imagine being in that mindset where you've been born this way? You are a man who likes men, or a woman who likes women, or anything else that is outside of the normalcy of heterosexuality. And you're just born that way. You come into this world that way because that's how you were made. That's how you were born. That's what your soul is. That's what your spirit is. You cannot change that. Anyone who says that they can change it is a lie. Just like you can't turn a straight person gay. You cannot turn a gay person straight. You can't. You can't do it. Could you imagine being born like that and being told that if you don't change, you're gonna die? And just coming to accept it. Just coming to accept that you're gonna be killed by God. That God hates you. That God is up there right now planning your death. Because you can't change who you are. To live with that every day of your life. I guess I got lucky. I was bisexual, so it's not that I could ignore that I was attracted to women, but I could at least have a happy relationship with a man. And that was enough for me at the time. I just considered myself lucky. I was like, well, thank God I like men still. Because otherwise, I would have been completely miserable. Because I was not the type of person who wanted to be alone. I was not the type of person who wanted to be celibate. That was just not in the cards for me. I wanted a partner. I didn't care what gender they were. But to be in that situation and just realize you either have to accept that you're going to die at Armageddon or die by your own hand. There's no in between. Because you're not going to be accepted by God no matter what you do. Because you can't change yourself. It's just sad. It's really, really sad. And again, Jesus, I don't think Jesus would approve of treating people that way, no matter who they were. Because Jesus was a good person. What if you are in a country where political unrest frequently leads to chaos and death and destruction? And the only thing that can keep you from being among those people who are being hurt in that situation where clearly evil people are hurting innocent people for the sake of politics. But if you just had this little card that stated you were a political party or whatever, you would be spared. You would be spared by these evil people who want to hurt you because of politics. They're clearly evil too. The people who would do this are evil. But still, there's a card that you could have, and it would prevent you from... I'm going to have it on screen what I'm talking about here, but I'm trying to make it more general for the sake of, But you die anyway. You are hurt anyway. Your family is killed in this political unrest. Because the men in New York said, no, you can't have that card. So you die. The fruitage of Jehovah's Witnesses is death. Watchtower has so much blood on their hands. An extreme amount of blood on their hands. Thousands of people have died for the sake of these men in New York. All of them have blood on their hands. Everybody involved in these decisions has blood on their hands. How can you stand there and say that you were following Jesus if Jesus would probably not want to be caught dead among Jehovah's Witnesses because of how disgustingly hypocritical they are to ignore the Bible, to ignore his words, to ignore what he said for the sake of believing some men in New York and their interpretation of the Bible. It makes me so angry. I'm going to read the final part of what Jesus has to say here in Matthew chapter 7. Therefore, everyone who hears these sayings of mine and does them will be like a discreet man who built his house on the rock. And the rain poured down, and the floods came, and the winds blew and lashed against that house. But it did not cave in, for it had been founded on the rock. Furthermore, anyone hearing these sayings of mine and not doing them will be like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. And the rain poured down, and the floods came, and the winds blew and struck against that house, and it caved in, and its collapse was great. Jesus' closing statements here bring everything together very perfectly. Again, I don't believe in Jesus. I am not a spiritual Christian. I am an open agnostic, so I do not know if there's a God out there. If there is, that door is open. And if I ever get evidence that there is a God, evidence that's enough for me, I will happily become a Christian or whatever religion. I would happily follow God if he proves himself to me. If he can prove that he's alive, if he can prove that he's real, he, she, whatever. If a God can prove that they are real, I would follow them. That door is open. It's just not filled yet. So don't take this as like a Bible-beating Christian saying this or something, or even an atheist, an angry atheist. I'm not any of those things. I'm an open person. And I refuse to be in a box like that would inhibit my thinking in one way or another. Because I've tried atheism. I've tried other religions. I've tried none of it. None of it's good. It's all It's all a box. It's all a fucking box of people trying to control you. All of it. Politics, religion, all of it's a box. And I don't want to be in that box anymore. Because I was told for too long how to think and what to think and who to believe. And I refuse to be that way ever again with anything in my life. No matter what it is, no matter who's saying it. And I will not be closed-minded to this. And I will not ever again refuse to call out unrighteousness where I see it, no matter who it's coming from. And you won't be either. You don't have to be. If you've sat down and you've watched this video, then that proves to me that you are an open-minded individual. And you want to at least hear what the other side has to say. And for that, you are to be commended. And I encourage you to read all of this that I've read today for yourself. Most of it was just a Bible chapter, but go on jw.org. Read what they're saying and what they're putting forth and the things that they are cherry picking from their Bible. And compare it to the Bible and compare it to what Jesus has actually said. And look for yourself. Whether you're a Jehovah's Witness or not, look for yourself and prove this to yourself. And realize that if you want to follow Jesus, this is not the way. This is not the way to do it. Jehovah's Witnesses have a song that goes, "This is the way to life. This is the way. Don't look aside, not for a moment stray." What is that song telling you? That song is telling you to follow Jehovah's Witnesses, to keep your mouth shut, to keep your mind closed. To not think for yourself. To not actually, for a second, actually follow Jesus or the Bible. Jehovah's Witnesses are not Christians, and their fruitage is death. Jesus made it very, very, very simple to follow him. Love your neighbor, love God. By loving your neighbor, you are loving God. And to love God, you have to love your neighbor. And again, Jehovah's Witnesses have proven that they have no interest in following either one of those commandments. Again and again, this organization has proven that Christ is not on their side. And to that, I say, amen, my brothers and sisters.